A Mistake by Warren Wee.
Story is fictitious, and any resemblance to individuals or events is just a coincidence. Characters' ideas do not represent the writer's viewpoints.
The day had finally arrived. Anxiety, stress, fear, and worry were plastered on everyone's face. However, I was an exception. Calm and collected, I walked over to my desk and sat down. I was sure that I could do well. My excellent memory should be enough to carry me through the examination. As I waited for the teacher to give us instructions to start, I glanced around the classroom, curious about how the other students felt. Everyone looks so nervous. Are they not smart enough to know that they can't do anything about it now? They probably won't even be able to do the questions properly. I thought to myself arrogantly. I knew that, as the top student in class, I did not have to revise and could still score higher than anyone in the class, or so I thought. When the teacher announced, "Begin," everyone hurriedly picked up their pencils and flipped open their booklets. I looked at the first question and chuckled silently. "Easy," I muttered under my breath as I shaded the answers in the optical answer sheet OAS. One by one, I shaded the small ovals on the paper, and upon completion, switched over to work on the next booklet of the paper. Thinking to myself, this booklet must be just as easy as the previous one. I glanced at the first question and immediately got stumped, proving my thoughts otherwise. As I progressed, I found the questions increasingly difficult. Eventually, I left some questions unanswered. Slowly but surely, I achieved completion of the paper with 5 minutes remaining, according to the classroom clock. Flipping through the first booklet, I checked and tallied its answers with the OAS, quite confident that I would do well. Much to my horror, I found that I had made a fatal mistake. Oh no, I've shaded the OAS wrongly. Some of my answers will be wrong. I screamed internally, suddenly a lot more panicky than at the start. I grabbed my pencil and eraser and began to correct my mistakes, leaving much eraser dust on my desk. Unfortunately, while I still had half of the answers to correct, the invigilator instructed, "Stop writing. Put your pens down and remain seated. Do not talk while I'm collecting the scripts." Exasperated, I sighed in defeat as I handed in my paper. Contrary to my supercilious attitude before the test started, pessimism took over as I knew that I could not do well in the examination anymore. A week later, our form teacher, Mrs. Tan, told us, "I'm going to return you your math exam scripts." Everyone's face lit up. Once again, I was the exception of the class, momentarily feeling deflated. When I received my report card from Mrs. Tan with trembling hands, cold sweat trickled down my forehead as I returned to my seat where I scanned the cover page for my score. What? Only 60 marks. I felt even worse when I got back the answer script. Studying my mistakes carefully, I realized that it was not just the erroneous shading of the OAs that cost me my precious marks. I went home with a heavy heart that day. My arrival at home caused my mother to appear from the kitchen. Seeing that I had returned to our abode, she queried, "What's your score for math?" As she looked at my solemn face, she seemed to understand what was going on. I took out my report card and mathematics booklets for her to scrutinize. She took some time to analyze each of my mistakes and thereafter sternly questioned, "How could you score so low?" "Mum, I was careless while shading the OAS." Before I could finish my sentence, my mother cut in, face-palming in dismay, "Who were you trying to kid? I saw your errors. You made so many mistakes in paper too. I think this is because you didn't revise your work, playing video games the whole time. Your lack of revision, your blunders, all these mean that you are too arrogant." At that moment, I accepted where I had truly gone wrong. The mistake was not due to my horrible revision schedule, or lack of it, nor was it because of my carelessness in shading the OAs. It was largely my arrogance that cost me the marks that I could have easily attained. Regret drenched me like a tidal wave, tears flowing down my cheeks. Stung by the realization, I rushed to my room, not wanting anybody to see me in that emotional state. In my room, I contemplated the preceding events and resolved never to be so complacent again, be it studies, sports, or the like. The mistake cost me 40 marks this time, but I knew that if I were to approach matters with arrogance in the future, the consequences might be harsher.
Dishing up a technique. Reflect in your concluding paragraph. Quote from the story, I contemplated the preceding events and resolved never to be so complacent again, be it studies, sports, or the like. The mistake cost me 40 marks this time, but I knew that if I were to approach matters with arrogance in the future, the consequences might be harsher. Follow-up activity. Write a composition about a mistake. Your composition should be based on one or more of these pictures. Consider these points. What was the mistake? Why was it a mistake? Like, share, and subscribe to join us in our celebration of children's writing on YouTube. Story Coolhouse. Your companion in learning.